Hey guys, what is up? Carter here. We're going to take a closer look at the Grayman Sawtooth. I mentioned before that I've had this knife in the past about a year ago and I let it go. Kind of wish I hadn't, so I gave it another shot and here it is. All in all, if you get nothing from this video, let's just say that this is probably one of the best budget, hard use frame lock folders you can buy if you can get over the edge problems that it has. If it wasn't for the edge problems, I would say that this thing is an amazing feat of awesomeness. I mean, and it still is, but you can't deny the edge problems that this knife has, as well as other Grayman knives. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But aside from that, it's amazing, the knife that you get for the money. And if you're at all interested in a super big, heavy-duty, beefy titanium folder, you definitely need one of these in your collection. No question about it. This thing just rocks, tears it apart. So, first off, size. 10 inches, 10 monstrous inches of fury right there. 4 1/4 inch blade. That is huge. 10 ounces. This thing is a brick. It is huge. Very thick stock. You can see there it's pretty much on par with a Strider knife, but you get a longer blade, wider blade. Just amazing stuff. Super thick titanium slab right there. Backspacer, I believe it's G10. Titanium liner, so it does have a liner on this side, titanium as well. This particular version has the OD G10, as you can see right there. I opted for the DLC coated version, so DLC coated blade, DLC coated titanium, all the hardware, all the screws, the pivot, thumb studs, everything is perfectly DLC coated. And it is just flawless. And for those that aren't aware, DLC coating is very tough. It's the toughest coating I've run into. Same thing that's on the Paramilitary 2, their black bladed version is DLC coated, and I could not get that coating off of there even when I tried my hardest. So very strong, and it also has a nice matte kind of finish to it. It's not super shiny, so it has a very nice finish to it. Similar in finish to black oxide, except a billion times stronger than black oxide. It's also very expensive. It's done like in a vacuum, and it actually kind of embeds itself into the material, so it's not just sitting on the surface, it kind of grafts with the material, which is why it's so strong. So yeah, definitely very cool. I'll talk pricing last, because that's a very important part. Let's get into the blade shape. Very good blade shape for prying. It's got a very thick tip, as you can see there. It also has kind of this spear point type deal going on here, so very good for stabbing and thrusting into things. You've got this nice finger choil, which will prevent you from sliding up on it, as well as very aggressive jimping. I know I'm skipping past the blade, I'll come back. This jimping is very hard cut, and I believe how they do this is they actually drill holes before they cut the stock. I believe this is done with a drill bit. And then they go through and they cut it in half, and that's how they get this really, as opposed to actually like milling out the jimping. They drill the holes and then cut everything, and then it leaves this very aggressive jimping. I mean, this is kind of jimping where even in heavy gloves, it's going to help you out. So back to the blade, we have a very slight recurve, which I like, actually, just because it is so slight. It was very easy to sharpen, wasn't a problem. Flat ground, so it's not hollow ground, so that makes it it's pretty thick behind this edge. So this is not going to be some kind of super slicer. You know, that's not what this is for. This is meant for chopping, prying, stabbing, you know, hard, heavy-duty things, kind of a backup fixed blade, so to speak. Obviously, those are all things that is preferable for a fixed blade, but this would make a great addition to that. You know, no sheath, folds up in itself. I think sometimes we take the folding knife design for granted. You know, the fact that it's its own sheath. But anyways, so yeah, flat ground, so it's very thick, so it's going to be a very strong edge. S30V, good all-around steel. You know, it's not the latest and greatest anymore, but it's still very, very good. Corrosion resistant, you know, kind of just good all around, especially when it's used like this in such a thick stock. If I could, in a perfect world, if I could make a change to this blade, it wouldn't really be a functionality thing. It's mainly just looks. I want to get rid of this stupid nub on the back here. It's actually flat back here, and you can't really sharpen it, and it just looks stupid. It would be nice if this was just knocked out into like a sharpening choil right here, or even if it just went straight across. You know, this little point here is just kind of ugly and annoying. But like I said, it's really just an aesthetic thing, and this is not a knife meant for aesthetics. So might as well talk about the edge. As you can see, I've gone through and reprofiled it. I've evened it out a lot. I didn't go perfect just because I didn't want to remove the extra material. You know, it wasn't that important to me. I just wanted to even out more than it was, which I did, and it's very, very sharp. It also was not consistently sharp. The tip here was still kind of dull, and it was very sharp back here, so I was able to kind of clean all that up. But definitely, the one thing holding this knife back is the edge. It's not done all that well. I have a few theories about what's going on with this knife that I'm not going to discuss in this video. There are some kind of inconsistencies. You know, this is a Grayman's debut folding knife, and it is executed flawlessly. And it, you know, it takes a lot of engineering and design work to make a folding knife work. Usually there's multiple iterations when somebody tries to make a folding knife, especially a frame lock like this. And Grayman just kind of came out the gate with this awesome design, perfectly executed, except for some very questionable edge work on it. So it does raise a few interesting questions. I have a few theories, but I'm not going to talk about it here. It doesn't really matter for the purpose of this review. We've got G10 here, very nice and grippy. I believe I mentioned all the different configurations that are available. There's quite a few out there. Frame lock, nice and thick. Early lockup, and extremely solid. Like, perfectly solid. You have actually, unlike Strider, which does the, you know, just the small point of contact, you have a nice line, probably about 1/4 inch of contact that this lock bar is putting on here. So it's definitely not going to wear out very quickly at all. It's going to stay in this position for a long, long time. Nice pocket clip. I did kind of relieve some of the tension. I was having a little trouble getting it into my pocket just because it would kind of bunch up on the material a little bit. But after I relieved some of the tension, no problems. Nice and good. There is no over travel. However, there's a lot of material on this relief here, and so there's quite a bit of lock tension. So, you know, overextending is just, it's not really an issue for regular use. You know, that's about as far as your thumb can really push it out anyways. So very good design there. I don't really think a lock bar stabilizer is necessary on this knife. Just the way it's designed, it works out very, very well. Fit and finish is perfect, more or less. I mean, yeah, all the edges are rounded. There's no machining marks. The only machining marks on here are this right here on the G10. You can see the milling marks in there for some reason, but everywhere else it's perfectly fine. You've got, I guess this is still considered beveling, but it's rounded, if that makes sense. It's not perfectly rounded. I mean, you can still see the beveling marks, but it's not cut straight across like a Sebenza. See how the Sebenza, the beveling is just a straight cut. I don't know if you can see that. What I'm talking about is here on these edges. That's just a straight cut, whereas this is actually somewhat rounded. So very, very comfortable in the hand. There's no sharp edges or anything. You get a good grip on it. Another thing I wanted to note is the very large stop pin right there. Huge. And then also the radius part on the tang that connects to the stop pin. So it actually, so rather than, you know, if this is the stop pin, rather than having a piece of steel hit on it like this, it actually cups it, so more surface area comes in contact with it, which means it's not going to create a little ravine in the tang, which means it's not going to kind of start to move the blade back, if that makes sense. It cushions around it, so that's awesome. Has the bushing system in there, so it's really, really smooth. Got to be careful not to chop your finger off when you're closing it. It does have a slight bit of side to side, and this is all the way cranked down, and that is just because that bushing is just a fraction of a millimeter wider than it should be. So that, I could fix that. I could take it out, take that bushing, and kind of sand it a little bit, put it back together, check it, sand it a little bit. But frankly, it does not bother me at all. We're talking about a minute. I mean, if you just grab it right here, you would say, oh no, that's completely solid. If you grab it right here, you can feel just a little bit of wiggle. Not an issue for me. Detent is set perfect. There's no movement here. Perfectly centered. Everything is nice and flush. It's really just an amazing knife. I mean, if you're into like the super heavy knives. Now let's talk pricing. You can get a Sawtooth full titanium, all bead blasted, for under $400. It's pretty crazy. And then the DLC coating is just a few bucks more. And you can get it DLC coated in the all titanium or with the carbon fiber scales, G10 scales. The base model, the G10 scales with all bead blasted, is $375. $10 shipping. It's really amazing. You are not going to find a giant knife with a better value than that. It's really quite astounding. And then if you get down to the smaller version, which is the Dua, a little 3-inch blade, even more competitive pricing. $255 for the all titanium Dua. It's really quite amazing. The value you can get on these. So if you're looking for a big, beefy, beater-up knife, I would definitely recommend one of these. You may or may not have to do some additional sharpening on it to get it where you want, but if you plan on using your knife, you're going to be sharpening it anyways. So what's one additional sharpening throwing into the mix? Plus, it looks cool. That looks really, really cool. It is a sexy blade. Very, very nice. I'm very happy to have it. Really like it. Definitely not going to be getting rid of this one. Alright guys, I'm out of here.